Welcome, everybody. Are we enjoying the rain? So my name's Kim Morton. I work at Appalachian State University. We work in the Office of Transfer Services, and we'll tell you a little bit about the office in a second. My job is Associate Director of Engagement and Retention. So I work with the students once they hit that confirm button all the way through to graduation. And our former director used to say, if they don't graduate, it's my fault. So I made sure they all graduate.
Is it Appalachian State or Appalachian State?
Appalachian State.
Okay.
Though in my head it's Appalachian because I'm from Jersey.
And I'm from Maryland, and I said Appalachian State in my interview, and was still fortunate enough to get hired. So my name's Nate Weigl. I also work at Appalachian State University in Western North Carolina. Boone is the town. How many of you have been to Boone, out of curiosity?
Awesome. Ooh, nice.
And I'm also an associate director. I'm on the operations side. So our side is overall credit evaluation for the whole university. Kim's going to tell you a little more about the university in a minute. But we're over credit evaluation, which includes all transfer credit, all visiting coursework. So if a student takes a course away from App, wants to transfer it back in, that would be a current student. All external credit by exam, articulation agreements, petitioning for credit, and the list goes on. So we are that's our side of the office, and we work together. We see each other every day, and we each supervise a team. So our objectives for today. First, we're going to in just a moment, Kim's going to introduce our office, the Office of Transfer Services. She's going to talk a little bit about what we do and give you kind of a big picture overview there. She's also going to introduce App State, give you some key facts about Appalachian and the region where we work. We are going to talk about why it's so important to engage faculty in the transfer student experience. So, what are the potential benefits of engaging faculty deeply, as well as who are the key stakeholders that need to be involved in those conversations and in that engagement. We'll talk about some faculty engagement strategies. I know that a lot of you just listened to Dr. Burns, and that was a very, very humbling talk for me. And so where I'm going with that is we think that we do a lot of things well at App. We think that we engage faculty well, but we also realize we have a lot of room for growth. And so part of what we're going to do is talk about our own strategies, but we're also going to leave time for you all to talk to each other and then share out some of your ideas on engagement strategies as well.
So I always find it helpful to get a little perspective of the school that's presenting, because not all schools are created equal and not all can do what we do. And so how do you, understanding where we come from, and then how you can tweak or change what we're offering as a suggestion to your institution. So a little bit about Appalachian. We are located in Boone, North Carolina. It's Western North Carolina. It's really not near anything. You've got to go up a mountain to get there. So it's not a commutable school. You're not going to really, students have to live in Boone or the surrounding towns. And so that does make it more of a traditional age group, because moving your family to a town with limited business opportunities is difficult. We are one of the 17 institutions in the UNC system, so we're a public institution. We had 17,000 plus undergrad and about 1,700 in the fall. The chancellor's goal for this coming fall is 20,000. We have a 20,000 by 2020 goal. We have over 150 majors for our students, and about a fourth to a third, depending on the year and the number of first years they bring in, is the number of transfer students that come. So we brought in 1,230 this past fall, and then this spring we brought in 430. So overall about 4,500 transfer students on the campus. Majority come from our UNC, our North Carolina community college system, 70% of them. And so our office structure at App is we have a central office of transfer services where we're all under one roof, all under one director, even though we have different roles. So that makes it easy. So we are the advocates for transfer services. For students, they know where to come, and we're all cross-trained. So while we're not there, others are able to jump in and do our job. So we are part of enrollment management, housed in academic affairs. We are about 10 years old. We originated first when they were doing some gen ed changes as transfer articulation. The goal was credit, but as soon as we put out that word transfer on our shingle, all transfer questions made its way to our office. And so they saw a need for more resources in the office, and so we grew to include pre-transfer advising, a relationship builder with our community colleges. We have 3 credit evaluators, a director, and then I'm the associate director for engagement and retention, plus some support staff. So technically 8, a little further down, it's 8.5 staff. We help students from the very beginning, from perspective through to graduation, though we do not admit. We have 2 wonderful folks here from admissions that actually admit, but we work hand in hand, but we're different, separate offices. So the 8.5 staff. And then we also have some assistance from 15 transfer student mentors and over 100 faculty transfer mentors, which we'll discuss as one of our examples in a few minutes. And then we also have an internal advisory team of a transfer service team, and we'll discuss that in a little bit as well. So before we begin, and this is where the poll everywhere was going to be, we wanted to see who's in the audience. So who's from a community college? Okay. How about four-year public? Large group. Four-year private. And others. All right, a couple others. All right, and so how many are transfer services center type folks?
Cool.
Okay. Admissions. Okay, registrar. Got a few of those. Faculty. Any faculty in here? Hey, we have some faculty. Wonderful. Student affairs. Okay, and then that other, or I wear 20 different hats, and so all of the above. Yeah. All right, there you go. And the last question I just had is, what do you think, how many of you think you engage your faculty really well? One. One. Moderately well. Okay. And not at all. All right, so, well, good. You're in the right place. Welcome.
Okay, so I should go ahead and mention, I forgot to mention earlier that I was actually a faculty member in the math department at App for 9 years before moving over to what my colleagues like to refer to as the dark side a little over a year ago. So this is very near and dear to my heart, and I've kind of seen both sides of it, so just to give you a little context. Before we share why we think it's important to engage faculty and then jump into some of our own strategies, I'm curious why you all think it's important to engage faculty. I'd like to ask that question first, and you can just shout it out or raise your hand, and then I'll go ahead and, or Kim can walk around with a microphone. Sure, I can too. So why is it important to engage faculty in the transfer experience?
They are not always in touch with exactly how this is going to affect particular demographics of transfer students.
Okay, great, thanks. Hand it to you, and then you can pass it back.
Because the faculty run the ship.
We've found that our transfer students are 30% less likely to interact with their faculty outside of class than our native students are.
Wow, so you actually came up with a number 30% less likely. Interesting, thanks.
I went to the Relationships Matter session yesterday, and they said that the most impactful interaction or relationship that can be formed is student to faculty to make sure that the student feels satisfied with their college experience.
Well, most important relationship is student to faculty in terms of, you said, in terms of success, ultimate completion, that type of thing.
Working with transfer credits specifically, I feel like with a lack of faculty engagement, there's harder discussions about articulations and resulting in loss of credits.
Yeah, loss of credits. Yep. A few more.
I feel that faculty have more knowledge about our programs, and then they can help us recruit our students. And that's where we're having issues getting that buy-in from faculty to help with our transfer events and things like that.
Great.
Depending on where the students are coming from and the institution they're coming from, they sort of like have a scarlet letter on them as far as the faculty are concerned. Like, well, you're from the school, and so you're not going to be successful.
Awesome. Did you want to?
Similar. Okay. Faculty misconceptions about their academic performance.
Thank you.
I would say that their needs are different than a freshman. So where we find, like, freshmen are looking for that, clubs, organizations, things like that. While that matters to a transfer student, they're also coming in with those credits. They're starting to think about, how do I get to my career? How do I get that internship? How do I get that research opportunity? So they want to connect with those faculty to be able to move farther along in their academic career.
That was my thought exactly. Our faculty have taught, researched, networked, have connections in their career areas. Our transfer students need that sooner than our freshmen, and getting them connected sooner to those resources and those networks is essential.
All right. I think, Nate, you ready to?
I think we have one more in the back. Can we do one last one?
One last one.
Go ahead, last one.
Because we want to make sure you leave time to talk to each other, too.
I was just going to say that we use faculty for our to approve course equivalencies, especially those upper level ones, and also to build more transfer-friendly degrees and to kind of change, how things have been for those purposes.
Well, thank you, y'all. There's going to be a lot of overlap in what you just said and what we've got on our slide here, but what Kim and I mean, in our office in general, and hopefully what our institution has bought into, is that increased faculty knowledge, by engaging faculty, there's going to be increased knowledge of their transfer population. We often hear how important it is just to know statistics about the transfer population. You're going to get immediate buy-in from that, and as a result, we'll have improved relationships between faculty members and transfer students. We find that faculty members are more likely to help recruit transfer students as well, the more that they are engaged, as well as a couple of different people said, increased consideration for equivalent credit. So, and we'll talk more about that in some of our strategies in just a minute. As we engage faculty, we found that they are more likely to come to attend our transfer-specific events. A number of those, and Kim will be talking about some of those in a little bit, as well as we just talked about that faculty-student interaction and how key that is. If we found that as we engage faculty members, they're more likely to be willing to conduct research with transfer students right off the bat when they arrive on campus, many of them in their junior year or even later. Greater consideration for the impact of curriculum changes. I mean, a slight adjustment in a program of study or in a policy or a procedure on campus can have an impact, a significant impact or a different impact on transfer students than it does on those native first-year students, for example. And we find that faculty are considering that. Debunk transfer myths. We're all aware that there's tons of myths out there about transfer students. We want to get out and we want to debunk those myths. And an opportunity for increased funding. I mean, let's be honest, the more that we engage faculty, the more likely we feel we are to be able to get funding for working with transfer students. And then finally, it helps our institution as we engage faculty prepare for the changing demographic of higher education. That's been a key part of the conversation the last couple of days as well. So it allows our institution to be proactive.
So the following part, next 10, 15 minutes, we're going to quickly go through some of the strategies that we're doing. Again, not everything is replicable on your institution exactly. You need to figure out how it might be tweaked or if it even will work. But these are some of the things that we have found that work at App. So how many of you have a new faculty orientation? How many of you are part of new faculty orientation? Okay, the hands are much more minimal.
So about 3 people raised their hand.
About 3 people raised their hand. And so this is a big way to get in front of these new faculty to let them know about your demographics of your transfer students and make them start thinking of the characteristics and needs of transfer students. So it's usually led, if you don't know who runs it or where it is, it's usually led by either your provost office or some type of professional development faculty learning resource office. Ours is led by our CAE, our Center for Academic Excellence. And so they lead that every August for our incoming faculty. It is an opportunity for you to present new faculty with an overview of student demographics. Ideally, this would be a broad overview showing not only transfer in first year, but non-traditional, veterans, early college, all of the different opportunities. But if someone from your admission or enrollment office is not doing that, then just raise your hand and see how you can get in to talk to them about the transfer student population. At App, they have a couple different ways. One thing they do is an educational mall and reception. So our new faculty orientation is a 2-day faculty orientation, and on the first day, afternoon, the end part of the first day, they do this educational mall where they bring in all of partners and different people from campus tutoring, our international development office, veteran services, us, and we all have tables, and it's an opportunity for the new faculty to just kind of walk around, interact with the different offices. There's food, there's alcohol, all that stuff that's going to get all of us out and mingling. And so it's just an opportunity for us to start making connections with those offices. The big thing I've learned in doing this for about 3 years now is how you set your table up. So the first year we kind of went over and set it up like we would if we were talking to transfer students. Well, faculty are going, I wasn't a transfer student. They kept walking. And so you need to set your table up. So how can you help transfer students, and how can you learn more about the transfer student population to get them come in and talk to your table and you? They also, for the first year this year, did a panel discussion that I was invited to sit on about supporting the Appalachian student. So there were, again, some of us on the panel that talked about the different demographics of students, and then there are also some resources like the Dean of Students Office and the Counseling Center that were on the panel providing an overview. Now, similar to our students' orientation, they're drinking from a fire hose and getting a lot of information. So it's just a small part, but if you start putting that nugget of, oh, this is your transfer student population or whatever populations that you're actively involved in, it's just helping those new faculty from the very beginning get engaged and interact with you. And then is there continued professional development? So maybe they say, no, the new faculty orientation is so full, we can't put another thing on the agenda, the faculty will revolt. Well, ask them if there's continued professional development throughout their first semester. Often the new faculty, and our faculty in the room might be able to attest, they have to continue professional development through their first semester or two as they're getting started. So ask, well, can I have a session? Can I offer a session on how faculty can engage with transfer students?
So next slide, we just want to talk about how important we think data is. I alluded to that a little earlier. It was so interesting to hear the 30% mark that you shared a second ago. So just that our institutions are paying attention to the numbers and then making sure that those numbers are shared with campus. So data is key. We believe it's key to tell the story of the student, of the student population in general. At App, we fluctuate some, but we've been as high, just last year we had somewhere around 6,000 transfer students, I believe, and we were as high as 30 to 33% of our population. You get out and you tell faculty that, and they're like, what? Are you a third, almost a third of our student population is transferred? Yes. And then all at once they're looking at their classes through a different lens and thinking a little bit differently. In order for faculty to better understand the population and where these transfer students are coming from, where they're going, what drives them, the different things that they're dealing with, and again, your native population, and as well as just sharing with faculty and administration, showing them the need for additional resources, whether that be money or programming, et cetera, is just so important.
So when I first came, with my last institution, on the first day of classes, they would send out, here's the new incoming population. How many of you do that? Do any of you have that go out? I got some nods, but no hands. So to show them, okay, this is how many first years, this is how many transfers, this is where they're coming from. At App, they didn't do that. And so we did it ourselves, at least for the transfer student population. So we created an infographic that let them know more about the transfer students, what community college they were coming from, what institutions they were coming from. We, again, debunking those myths about they have an 85% retention rate for our transfer students, and our first year retention rate is like 2 points higher. So it's very comparable, and we're very proud of that. And we want to make sure that the faculty and the staff know that. Well, how fast they graduate, what the numbers, that they're bringing in 48 credits, and side note, 66% of our first year students are bringing in credits. We wanted them to know this. So we create this infographic, it's updated every fall. We send it out to the entire campus. We have to wait until census, but it is sent out to the entire campus as soon as census is over. And then we also roll in, we blew it up this year, and we put it at all of our National Transfer Student Week events throughout campus, so that anyone walking by those events could see our numbers and our information and demographics. So somehow, and we do this with our IRAP office, our Institutional Research
And Planning.
Assessment and Planning.
Yep.
So, make sure the numbers are right, obviously, but it's key to get them out.
So another example, and this is Kim actually put together what we call a transfer services team on campus, and a recommendation from that team was something as simple as a new student indicator for faculty members. Now notice it doesn't necessarily say new transfer student, but we've got Yosef. How many of you seen Yosef like at a bowl game or something like that on TV? All right. Yosef's an undergraduate student, but he's a new student. And so and again, as a faculty member, as I would take a look at my roster as the beginning of the semester approached, it would have been extremely helpful to know who on campus is brand new and who is not. And this new student indicator would go away after the first semester once that student is considered a continuing student. Again, it doesn't say transfer student, but it's a way that we feel like we can fight for transfer students. But first-year students, in other words, they're under the umbrella of new students, and this could be really helpful. And here's another example just of from a previous institution where Kim worked, of where if I'm looking at my roster here, I can see that Alan, Mr. Kling, is a new transfer or a new student. And again, that just helps me prepare the types of conversations that I might need to have if with these particular students, and just think through differences in again, services, conversations, and that type of thing.
Yeah, so a lot of times when you have your junior level classes, the faculty don't know who's new to the institution. They don't take the time to explain where the resources are, or we use Moodle, but we renamed it As You Learn. No one's going to know As You Learn is our version of Moodle unless they're told that. And so these are some things. So at my last institution, they did spell it out, new transfer or new freshman. The decision at App is just to say new student, just to help the faculty know who's new. And we are in the process of getting this implemented. At App, it's not yet implemented, but we are a banner school, and it will be on their roster. Was that your question? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the plan. We're working with that. We just moved to Banner 9, and we're working with IT to hopefully get this implemented as soon as possible. So again, I mentioned that I work with our credit evaluation team, and we're over a lot on campus. We think that it's extremely important to work in particular with chairs, and we ask them to work with their faculty just to get their help in developing and strengthening our credit processes. We want to make sure that we're creating awareness, and not only of the processes themselves and how they work, because there's a lot of turnover. We have 40 to 50 departments. There's a lot of turnover in chairs, a lot of turnover in faculty as well. We want to make sure that they understand the processes and they also understand the timelines, and that helps our transfer students. So specifically petitioning for equivalent credit, we're working right now with chairs to try and make this electronic. We have thousands of courses that get petitioned by transfer students each and every year. And we want to make it as easy as possible for faculty members. We bring them into the conversation, particularly for upper level courses and then the 1 and 2,000 level courses that we have questions on. Make sure that we're working carefully with them. And it takes time to develop that trust, but we have that trust, and they understand our, the pressure that we have on us to turn decisions around for students, and so we've seen a lot of progress there. Visiting coursework as well, they help us. Faculty members are engaged in those conversations. So when a student wants to take a course away, she or he is often communicating with faculty members or faculty advisors and that type of thing before registering for those courses. Transition advising, do you want to talk about that for a second?
So we do pre-transition advising for our students. We have someone dedicated in our office that works with them at the previous institution, just to make sure that they are taking the appropriate classes to come in with a seamless transfer. North Carolina requires that we do transfer guides for every single major, and they're updated every single year. And so that takes a lot of collaboration with the faculty to make sure any changes they've sent through AP&P are reflected in the transfer guides, because those are considered set contracts. And so if they start deviating from those guides, well, we're going to have to make exceptions, because 2 years ago they started following that transfer guide. Now they're here, and that course no longer exists. What are we going to do to fix that problem?
We're fortunate to have a student employee who works with our Veterans Center and is, anytime we get courses off of a JST that have not been previously evaluated, we give those to the student employee who in this case himself is a veteran, and he will send those out and communicate with department chairs and provide learning objectives and course descriptions and all that. And again, so in this case, he's the one communicating with them, but we get decisions back very quickly again and just develop. It's all about relationships, as we all know. Same with credit by external exams. So last year, North Carolina mandated that we have to take a score of 3 or higher on an AP exam. Well, that required a lot of communication, collaboration with chairs and faculty members, and the fact that we had relationships with them was extremely helpful. This year we're doing the same thing for IB and Cambridge as well. So we have minimum score requirements now that have been mandated by the state of North Carolina. And the fact that we've already got these relationships with faculty members and chairs is helping the process go much faster than it otherwise would have.
So we have over 100 faculty and staff. We call it faculty transfer mentors, but staff are also some of them that have volunteered their time to serve as a mentor to our transfer students. So it's not a true mentor-mentee match. We bring in almost 1,700 new students. I can't give a mentor-mentee match to 100 faculty. But what we do is we provide this as a resource. So students are provided a comm as they're going through the admitted process from Slate, saying that we have this as a resource. These mentors are visible on campus at many of our new transfer student events. And it's an opportunity for them to connect with the faculty in those departments. The research questions they have. If you remember back to our demographics, we only have about 1,700 graduate students. So there's tons of opportunities for undergraduate research. And our transfer students many of them don't know how to go about getting hooked up with a research partner. And so these faculty mentors, even if we have 3 in biology and they might not necessarily have that the same interest in what they were going to do research, that biology faculty can say, you need to come and speak to so-and-so. That's where their research is. Let me introduce you. And so it's a good way to get into the different departments through a mentor. I'm going to totally jump ahead in my slide thing. So many of these were faculty or transfer students themselves. These are faculty members that remembered how hard it was, and so that's how we kind of pull them in. They're like, I did that, I went through that, I want to help other students. Also, some of them are faculty in high transfer majors, and they just see the students coming in. We recruit by working with the chairs. We recruit by sending out just general emails to the entire campus. We recruit by our mentors recruiting their colleagues to join. We recruit by asking students, who do you want to be a mentor? Who's a great faculty member that you think would be a mentor? They'll send us their names and we'll reach out to those faculty saying, you've been identified as a potential excellent mentor. Would you be interested in this? They all must do a 90-minute training. No exceptions. Even if it's a chair that wants to do this, I'm still making them do the training because they need to understand the characteristics and the needs of transfer students. They may think they know it, but we want to make sure they hear words, what the students themselves say and what the demographics are. So they all have to do the training before I'll list them as a mentor. They help at events like we have a transfer pre-orientation. We do welcome tents the first few days of school. They help read our scholarship applications. We put out the call and they are always willing to help. They're free. They don't get paid. They don't get compensated. They don't get release time for this. They're volunteering their time, and that's a big question that I often get. They also become great advocates in their department. So if a department is looking, let's change this prereq. We had chemistry wanting to add pre-calc as a prereq. Well, the mentors are saying, well, how's it going to affect our transfer students? Hold up. We need to check with transfer services and see how that's going to affect, because they're those advocates for us out in the departments.
Yeah, and I'll give you another example too that just came. It's been a huge success in the math department specifically. App State is one of two out of 16, 17 sister institutions that requires 4 hours of quantitative literacy, as opposed to 3 hours of quantitative literacy in our general education. Well, often students are transferring how many credits of math or quantitative literacy from a community college, let's say. It could be 6, but a lot of times it's 3 though as well. And if they transfer 3 and we're requiring 4, that's a problem for transfer students, right? So one of our transfer mentors had this great idea. Instead of making these transfer students take an additional 3-hour course, let's come up with a 1-hour course that they can, so that they can transfer in. And it's app specific, because again, we're one of 2 institutions. Let's come up with a 1-hour course, life skills, finance and statistics and that type of thing, that came, again, I have no doubt, out of just conversations that Trina, in this case, had with Kim. And it's been an enormous success and a real help for transfer students. It's come out of the Faculty Transfer Mentor program. I was a Faculty Transfer Mentor when I was in the math department, and Kim's communication with myself and the others in the math department was very unique and extremely helpful. It just helped me understand, before I worked in transfer services, helped me understand how I can be of service to transfer students specifically.
Yeah, and I'll send articles along that I think are interesting to them. The Clearinghouse does some webinars, so I'll send them links, and some of them will take advantage, others are just a little too busy. But as long as I'm giving them that opportunity and that information, they're staying current on their information. We did realize, though, that there are folks out there that are interested in transfer students but don't have the time to be a mentor. They're researching, they're busy. We still want to get them the information. So we created a condensed version kind of our mentor training, taking out the mentor aspects, and we call it Talking Transfers. And so it's just a professional development opportunity we offer once or twice a semester. Come learn more about our students, hear from a student panel. How can you support transfer students as you're working with them in the classroom or in your department? So it's just another opportunity for them. So some of you may have been to, our director retired in December, but she came up with these transfer symposiums, and she's presented them at a lot of these conferences. So you may have been in a previous presentation while she's talked about this, but this was one of our ways when we first got started on campus of introducing transfer students to the campus population. So it was a full day professional development opportunity. We encouraged departments to bring teams so that they could learn more about transfer students and how they work. It was a campus-wide discussion, and the first one was just, here's transfer students. It was back in the early part of our tenure of the last 10 years, and it says, let me tell you about the demographics. Let me tell you about their characteristics, about their needs, and then how could you support them? We were able to provide some grant funding for anyone that wanted to come up with a support program in their department that would then support the transfer students. Throughout the years, when we've done 4 of them so far, we've tweaked it. We're not going to want to repeat the same thing because we want other people to get involved, but we also want to continue building on our advocates. So the second year was a further conversation. Then we got into some of the subpopulations, military, early college. We really worked on discussing those populations and how they relate to transfer students. The third, and when I say year 3, it's not necessarily 1 year, 2 year. There might be a year in between. I think we were doing it every other year. Mm-hmm. The third year, we're like, you know what? Many faculty have never stepped foot on a community college before. They don't understand the students coming from a community college. So we rented a bus. We piled the faculty on the bus.
It looked like that.
Yeah, it did. And we took them to the community college. We gave them a tour. We heard from faculty and staff about some of their programs. We had community college students that were still in community college panel discuss what they're concerned about, their fears, the application process as they've encountered it as of yet. And it really opened the eyes, especially to those faculty that come from a traditional 4-year background and have never stepped foot on a community college. Yes, sir.
Was that campus a feeder or just a random?
Yes, no, it was one of our bigger feeder schools. It was Caldwell Community College. They have a mini campus in town, so we swung around there literally in their parking lot, and then we drove an hour down the road to their main campus. And then year 4, we did one on aligning curriculum. So we brought in our big STEM. So we brought about 15 different community colleges to campus, 1 or 2 from each biology, math, chemistry, some of those STEM fields where students were struggling to make the alignment because they might have learned one thing at one school and not here. And then we brought in our faculty, and they represented the math department. That was before he came over to us. And they had a full conversation about curriculums and how it was at their community colleges and how it is at ours and how could we better align the curriculum. And out of that, I know some discussions have continue in the math department.
Oh, definitely. Yep. And so our proposed next topic, which we're hoping to do as early as next year, again, it's in general every other year we do one of these, is the changing landscape of higher education. So in this case, we want to focus on the fact that as Dr. Burns alluded to and has alluded to the whole time we've been here, we're not looking at just our typical 18-year-olds coming to campus anymore. And so as higher education changes, we want to be proactive, and we need the faculty to be aware, and we also want their input and their help. As it changes, how might this affect gen ed, for example? What are some methods of teaching that might have to change potentially? And how about awarding credit, like for life experience or that type of thing as well? We want to engage them and involve them in the conversation from the start.
So how many of you have an internal advisory board, transfer service team, something on your campus? Okay. If you don't, you really need this. It's the best way to gain campus partners throughout campus. If you're the lone one or two people doing transfer, you're kind of like that one person out there with a megaphone. But if you have a team, then there's other people in other meetings that you're not able to be in helping you advocate for transfer students. So we have a transfer services team. This is their official mission, is to identify needs, where we're meeting them or not meeting them, identify units that processes might not be going well or that are going well. For example, we have scholarships. A lot of our scholarships are for really, you have to be here for 4 years to get the scholarship, and they're really first year centric. And so we went through and looked at all of the scholarships, and then just raise awareness of transfer issues among the faculty and staff. We have 20-ish people on our advisory or transfer services team. One faculty representative from each college serves on them, as well as some faculty, or as well as some staff from housing and admissions and other areas. We try and get students on it. Sometimes that works, and sometimes they don't show up, but we do try to get the student opinion on that board as well.
Is it faculty volunteers, or did it misidentified faculty?
Oh, no, no, it's really volunteers. If someone's going off, like we had one in arts and sciences went off, she found a replacement for us. They're not getting release time. It's just another committee that they're serving on. We meet monthly throughout the semester, and we don't meet in the summer because faculty aren't around in the summer, but we meet monthly. Sometimes there's work that they have to do in between, and these are some of the accomplishments. So we had a first year award that got handed out, and we're like, well, what about a transfer award? So we started a transfer champion award that is recognized at the end of the year meetings. The common reading book, because it's discussed in first year seminar, which many of our transfer students don't take, was only given to first years. But then we asked them to go to the convocation, and that's where the author is, and our transfer students are like, who's that? I don't know. So we're like, well, we need that book for our transfer students as well. We have made proposals. We don't have it yet, but we want a transfer center for students in our union, early college support, and the new student indicator. So these are some of the things that the transfer services team have done. We're at the point now, we've spent fall semester going, okay, what's our next thing? What are we going to focus on next? And we realize we really have taken care of the low-lying fruit. So now we're going to look at a strategic plan for transfer students. We're creating a strategic plan over the next year or so, and that's our work that we're going to be doing going forward. Just making sure we're meeting the needs. Our transfer students are not mentioned in the university strategic plan, so we want to make sure that they have all of the information when they're building these administrative plans.
I just want to quickly mention articulation agreements. So we have a comprehensive articulation agreement in the state of North Carolina. Our articulation agreements are for the AAS degrees, but we make sure that we are including faculty members from the very start as soon as we have a conversation with, let's say, a community college, for example, about that. And we've actually recently developed an articulation agreement guidelines manual. It is on our website, transfer.appstate.edu. We borrowed a lot of that from the Lone Star College system, a lot of those ideas, but we're going to be following a formal process as we work through articulation agreements. And again, faculty and department chairs are included from the start.
So one of the things that the math department, we keep going to math department, right? There are rock stars on campus, but every Wednesday they do a transfer tea. Or no, they do a tea.
Yeah, once a year.
Yeah. And so at the beginning of this fall semester a couple years ago, that like, we want to do our tea around transfer students. We want to welcome them. So they, did a social, their tea around transfer students, invited them. They had about 40 to 50 new students show up to meet the faculty, just socialize. We really liked that, but when we suggested it to other academic departments, like, well, we don't have money. So we put in some money for a grant from our Parents and Family Association, and this semester we did it with 5 other departments. Turnout, it's spring semester, so it was good on some places. Some places they might have forgotten to send out an email to invite the students, and so as you can imagine, the turnout wasn't wonderful, but they enjoyed the process, and they have said, we're going to do this again in the fall on our own, with our own money. So just kind of making those suggestions and laying that groundwork is now getting other departments to offer something like a social to welcome transfer students to their academic department.
And the ones that went well, the faculty members are looking around like, this is great. I mean, why didn't we think of this a while ago? And Kim's putting together some best practices bullets for them also to share in the future. Our STEM departments, so in this case, Arts and Sciences has given some money to, I believe it was physics and astronomy, bio, chem, and math, to have a transfer STEM day where we bring in a number of community colleges, and each community college brings in a handful of students, and they get a tour of campus, but they also get a tour of the department. They see some of the really cool opportunities that these departments are doing and talk about, the future market and opportunities if you go with actuarial science, for example. And so we are engaging students with faculty and faculty with students and faculty with our department, again, before these students ever transfer. The students also get to meet not only faculty members, but other STEM students from around the region who might be coming, and they've got, instant friendships that they can continue with. Go ahead if you want to, yeah.
Well, as most of you do, we offer transfer-specific tours for our prospective students, and during that, we often encourage department face-to-face tours. If they arrange it ahead of time, we will reach out to the departments and arrange that day when they're on campus. If they haven't known that was a possibility, they can do a follow-up tour, and we'll work with them on that. And these tours are led not only by our admissions ambassadors, but we send one of our transfer student mentors on every tour to give the transfer student perspective.
So last slide, and then we're gonna open it up to you all. We also reach out to again, we've got between 40 and 50 departments on campus, and there's turnover in chairs. Every time that there's a new chair, our office reaches out to that new chair and requests a 1-hour meeting with that new chair. We take a packet of specific information, and we have that face-to-face meeting. It's either Kim or myself, usually with our director as well, who goes and has this meeting, and we just advocate for transfer students. We want to make sure the 3 big ideas. We want to make sure they understand transfer students. We want to make sure that we want to push that they support our transfer population, and we want to advocate for transfer students. And so we literally walk in with a physical packet of paper, some of the things that we share with them are key Appalachian transfer statistics, so like what Kim showed earlier. Transfer resources, so what are some of the services that we provide? What's up with those RLCs, those transfer RLCs on campus, that type of thing. Department-specific statistics, so we actually hand them a couple sheets of paper. Here are where you are getting your, here are the top transfer feeder schools for psychology specifically, and here's how many students you brought in for the last 5 years in each fall and spring. And not only that, but here's how those students who go on to graduate with a psychology degree, here's what their GPAs look like upon graduation compared to those native students who graduated with a psychology degree. Sometimes the transfers are doing better, other times the native students are doing better, other times it's even. But just sharing that data with them and getting them thinking and them knowing that we're going to be transparent and we're working our tails off to help transfer students, a lot of times is all that they need. Discussion, and so we give them also some just some bullet points, discussion points for their kickoff meeting. Hey, can you talk a little bit about transfer students? And here's maybe some items that you might want to share specifically with your department at your first department meeting. And then also some reminders about processes. A lot of times these new chairs, if they're coming from a different school, out of state, even if they've been in the department for 10 years, they may not know all of the processes that we oversee. And so we want to make sure, again, that they're aware of those, not only of expectations and timeline, but just how they work and that they can talk about them as needed. Also, now they have a face a phone number, an email, please call us anytime. We will come to you to advocate for transfer students. Did you want to share anything else? Okay. Yeah. So, go ahead. No. Well, it's your turn. So it's 11:01. We've gotten to 11:15. We were hoping maybe to take 5, 7, 8. We'll just see how it goes, but take a few minutes. And the following prompts are really where we want you to focus. So if you could talk to 1 or 2 people in your vicinity and share some of the strategies maybe that your institution uses to engage faculty currently, if you're aware of any. What are some of the specific obstacles and challenges that you have experienced when working to engage faculty? And then what are some of the specific successes your institution has experienced? So again, we don't want to stand up here and pretend like we have all the answers, although we took a lot of the time. We want to hear from you all. We want you all to hear from each other as well. And then we may close with a little Q&A if we have time. But maybe take, I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes, and then we'll bring it back together. Sound good?
It is a group consensus here that we want to ask about the summer term, and while faculty are out and the transfer credit evaluations, does anyone have a good solution, or you guys?
While you're saying while faculty are off and we need to know if a course is going to come in as an equivalent, for example? Okay. So our, a couple things. Number one, we have at App with all but I think one department, we're able to make our own decisions for 1,000 and 2,000 level courses. And then if it's a 3,000 and 4,000 level course, we'll send it on to the department. If we don't feel like there's enough information, we will send a 1,000 and 2,000 level course on, but that's somewhat rare. The bottom line is we do ask departments to provide a contact over the summer. So it may be that we have a petition contact for every single department. Sometimes it's the chair, sometimes it's not. But we do remind them as the summer approaches that we're hoping to turn things around in 2 to 3 weeks as our advertised turnaround time for a student. So when the student gets the information to us, we try to do it within 2 to 3 weeks. And so there is someone that will be responding to us from each department. And again, it's just all about that communication and making sure that we know who to reach out to. So it really hasn't presented a huge problem for us.
And most of our chairs do work through the summer.
The chairs generally do, yeah. Does that help? No?
No, it doesn't work that way.
And then the one thing is faculty and the chairs are reluctant to give it to the advisors, so or the transfer credit evaluators, so we're having
Well, I mean, my suggestion is just, again, as you're creating those relationships, let them know the expectation is we still need to get this information back in 2 to 3 weeks, and we're all adults here working together trying to, help these students. And so if you can't make the decision, if you're not going to be available, if you're going to be in Belize, studying abroad, which is the case with, let's say, like for our biology petition contact, who is the person we need to reach out to? And we've got a spreadsheet of who that is and in our articulation unit, and that's who we reach out to is the second person. So, yeah. So this is for questions, but also sharing your own engagement strategies as well. We're curious what you all are doing on campus too.
I feel like I might have some, so I've had some issues with this, and summers and January is really tough because we have our orientations, but our school does our orientations, and that same day the students get advised and their classes. So of course, when a lot of faculty are out, and we do all faculty advising. So, and I'm responsible for I coordinate our transfer advising for those days. And I think it kind of is similar. So what I've done is we have an advising council that consists of all of the associate deans as well as our academic advising center. And so what I have done is I basically made my boss make me be part of those meetings from time to time. So I kind of pushed myself into joining in on key time periods of the year for the advising councils. But what that's helped me do is get the associate deans to be aware of what's coming down the pike when it comes to this. And maybe that's one route you could take, because I've found that in our institution, a trickle down is way better than me, who's a nobody, trying to basically recruit faculty to advise. So I tell the associate deans what's needed. They trickle it down to the chairs who change frequently. And then the chairs are responsible for dispersing information. So I feel like that might be a good problem, or might be a good way to solve it, is just have the associate deans kind of spread the word.
Eric, you're not a nobody, by the way. But yeah, and I agree. We have associate deans meetings as well, and we haven't had to necessarily talk about petitions at those meetings, but we'll talk about other important things that are transfer related. And you're right, it trickles down coming from the associate deans to the chairs, then to the faculty members, and all at once. Oh, I better do this, as opposed to good point. Yes.
I'll just mention a couple things. So I'm from a 4-year private, so mostly transfer receiving institution, and I will give a plug for the Gardner Institute. They have a table here. We have done their Foundations of Excellent Transfer self-study, and we have partnered with a 2-year community college public that we receive 50% of our transfers from on that self-study. So it's been a great way for us to connect faculty across the 2 institutions. And we did kind of take the show on the road. We took a group of our faculty, specifically chairs, but others engaged in this process, to that community college, which both helped them make contacts there, but also provided the context that many of our students are coming from. So that whole process was very engaging for faculty.
Thanks. What other strategies are you all using?
A little over a year ago, our institution, because we were making students take hard copies and go all over campus to departments to get courses reevaluated, and we just put together a simple Qualtrics form. We had to get buy-in from each department so that we had a faculty member for every subject, and once we had that list, which sounds like the list that you have of people who are going to be the contact for course evaluation, once that list was completed, we rolled out the Qualtrics form, and now students can just take that link, they can upload their syllabus to this form, and it goes to their advisor, the student, the admissions office, and the department. And so when a department makes a final decision, their answer goes to the student, the advisor, and the admissions office, and so the whole process has become so much more streamlined because of that.
Thanks. Thanks. Other strategies or questions? We have a couple minutes, 2 minutes maybe. Sure.
We have 0 strategies. So my question, so my question would be for y'all about how long did it take you to get to 100 faculty mentors, and what did that communication look like? Because I can already hear the negative feedback. How did you incentivize it? Market it, all that kind of stuff.
So I've been there 4 years, and it was around when I came in, they had a bare bones. It was more like, hey, you're going to be a mentor. You're going to be a mentor. And so I was given a little basic list of about 25, and so I've been able to grow it. And then we lose some faculty and replace them with other faculty as they move on. So really, our faculty want to help on our campus, and maybe we're just unique, but all I do is send it out. We have a weekly or a daily email digest called Announce, and I send it out. I say, become a faculty mentor, help our students. They read it. They can go onto a workshop link and sign up for that workshop. Again, there's also a lot of the collaboration. We're out there. We're talking about it. They get to know us at the educational fair. I'm handing that. I have just a handout that I also give out about it. You're a new faculty mentor, and a lot of them, their first semester as a faculty, they can't jump in. They're getting their feet wet. But then a year or 2 later, now they're becoming a mentor. We do have some departments that have more mentors than others. Math, English. I find it's because a lot of them come from the community colleges working there, and then now they're working on our campus. And then some of the unique ones like rec management and criminal justice, and they just bring us a lot as well, just because they have a lot of transfer students coming into their department. We also have some departments that have no mentors, so it's not perfect by any sense. As much as I would love a mentor in every department, I don't have one. But it's really just getting out there. Every time we meet with new chairs, we're plugging that. It's just wherever you can plug and wherever you can entice them, we're trying to get the word out.
How big is your institution?
It's about 24,000.
Find out which of the faculty members were transfer
yeah.
students themselves and start there. I mean, if I was a transfer student, boom,
Yeah.
that right there, I'm sold.
Right.
So,
And we put their name on our website. They get a sticker for the door. I'm a faculty mentor. I mean, they're out there. It's publicized. It's great for their service as they're trying to get tenure and promotions and that
Yeah,
sort
that's
of
true,
thing.
too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
There's
that's
incentive right there.
So it's a great collaboration, but it also helps them.
Yeah. Any other strategies or questions before we call it a day that you really feel the need to share? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.